Hello, everyone. I'm very happy to present to you the ladies who have participated in my podcast one-on-one. And now they are gathered here to talk again about PhD, to talk about themselves, to talk about their experience. And we do not have all of the ladies, but majority of them are here. So as the introduction, I would ask them to present themselves, to share something about themselves, also beyond their CV, because why I invited them in the first place in this podcast was because they fascinated me as human beings, not only as scientists. So Alexandra, can I invite you to go first?
Sure. So I'm Alexandra, and I am an oncology researcher at the Francis Crick Institute. I'm doing my postdoc here, and I'm really not sure what I want to be when I grow up. I'm in a very transitory period at the moment, because I'm also a Gestalt psychotherapist in training, and I'm opening my private practice. I'm a dancer as well, a yoga teacher. But now the yoga teaching is more embedded into how I do therapy. I don't really do classes anymore. Um, and I like mountaineering. I like many things. So when someone asks me who are the person you want to be, it's almost like whatever I have the capacity to be at the moment, that's what I am. And when I don't have a capacity to be something, I need to drop it for a bit and then kind of come back to it. So there's a lot of facets. I always find it really difficult to box myself, but I'm kind of striving to maybe eventually merge and become a sort of a clinician scientist, where I would work with people who have experienced trauma, but then maybe go towards trauma research. I'm not sure how I'm going to get there, but I'm putting this out there, so maybe the universe will send me something.
Great, I hope so. And I'm looking forward to see where the universe will take you. Because I'm going to ask you afterwards, what did you imagine where you're going to be when you started your PhD? But let's hear what the other ladies have to say. Diana, can I invite you to go next?
Hi, I'm Diana Leitão. I'm Portuguese. I am currently a teacher at Eindhoven University of Technology. I also do research. I'm very much fascinated by developing sensing devices. But besides my work, I love to give my time to the community, the scientific community, more specifically, the magnetism community. I love to be involved in organizing events, in also making sure that talented people have access to opportunities to showcase their work, or just to have scholarships and have the right contacts. And all aside from science, I'm a classical ballet enthusiast. And actually, during my PhD and after my PhD, during my postdoc, I was quietly involved in teaching classical ballet to very young ballet dancers, to very experienced but still beginner ballet dancers. So that is still a passion that I carry on. Of course, nowadays I have less time to even myself do classes, but I still aim to go back a bit more someday.
Yeah, that's great. And we talked about this in one-on-one podcast, how also teaching ballet helped you in your academic role, because it's all part of you, and what you will learn in one place, you also transfer to another place. Yeah, but I'm curious also to hear what you imagined before ending up in Eindhoven. And Valentina, can you tell us something about yourself?
Yes, sure. First of all, thanks for having me, and it's a pleasure to meet you all. I am Valentina, originally from Italy. I've just relocated to California, to San Diego, for a new job. in a company that is very famous for Dutch people in the Netherlands, and now is starting to build this reputation all over the world. The name of the company is ASML, and I'm a program manager now in this new role, dealing with external partnerships with universities, research institutes, and government for innovation purposes. I used to live in the Netherlands. I actually lived in the Netherlands for a very long time in Eindhoven, and I studied at the same university where that Diana mentioned, at the Eindhoven University of Technology, and I did my PhD there into a field that is completely different from what I'm doing now. I am a biomedical engineer by background. I was smiling when I heard all of you talking about your wonderful side activities or initiatives or volunteering stuff that you're part of. Because I think in my case, for the first time in my life, I'm trying to take it easy instead. So I'm just trying to experience the new life as is, and I know that I want to do something beyond my 40 hours job. But I think it's the very first time in my life in which I don't jump on an opportunity right away, and I'm just exploring and finding the time to adjust first.
Yeah, and I would say don't underestimate the effort it took to move to another continent, to another place, to settle down. It's quite a lot of effort than just 40 hours work.
Yeah, it is, yeah, and it's still fun and engaging and challenging. But I'm trying to be more tolerant towards myself and more patient. So that's the resolution for 2024.
Good luck. Thanks. And finally, tonight we have Viteke with us. Can you share something about yourself?
Thanks, Maria. Thanks also for having me here on this podcast. So I'm Viteke de Boer. I'm managing director of the Eindhoven Hendrik Casimir Institute at the Technical University of Eindhoven. I have been at the University of Eindhoven for over 2 years now. So almost from the very start of the institute. The institute is quite new. It's I always call it the baby of the 4 institutes at the university. And something which attracted me specifically was the ambition to bring together different types of technology. So those are different species, if you can almost say it like this. I personally feel from a scientific point of view that there is a lot of gain and interesting research and opportunities happening at the interface of different technologies. I have done a postdoc in the field of neuroscience, while I have a PhD in the experimental physics, nanophotonics. And so it's kind of an opportunity to be a dumb person again and ask all the stupid questions you would like to ask. And that's again here, I would say, the case to work at the interface of different fields. And then next to that, I also like being back in academia. I did a little side tour before coming between my postdoc and this job. And I specifically also like to use this position, I would say, to work on the academic atmosphere and environment in terms of social safety and well-being of people. I know it's a little bit of a buzzword, the social safety, but I hope at least in a sort of micro environment, I can do that for the people I'm working closely with. So
Thanks. Yeah, and ultimately, I believe it's the microenvironment that shapes where we work, because we say, okay, you know, 3 of us are working at TU Eindhoven, but maybe we work in different microclimates and our experiences can be very different. So I believe it's the same if Valentina talks about ASML or Alexandra if she talks about CRIC. It depends which group you end up in. So as a friend of mine had something on the wall, like think globally, act locally. So we start from our own group.
I
Yeah.
agree.
So it was for many of you, I guess, a detour, or maybe not. Maybe this is exactly where you imagined where you are going to be when you did your PhD. I can say for me, I did not imagine I would be in the Netherlands 5 years. So today's 5 years after I finished my PhD. If somebody asked me where I was going to be and what I was going to do, this is not the position I would imagine. So it's interesting how opportunities open up, how we have something in mind. Even the PhD, we started and then we think, oh, yeah, you know, like this is exactly what I want. Then we go there. The experience shows us if it's really what we imagined. Is it more? Is it less? Do we like it? Do we not like it? What do we take from there? So I'm curious to hear for you girls, what did you imagine during the PhD? And where you are now, what happened? What did you make of it?
Yeah, I first want to say that I feel quite privileged to be in this group of people, and I feel quite supported. It feels I can notice myself getting more and more curious, because it feels there's a lot of alignment with where I want to be as well. Especially in terms of what Wittike was saying about social safety, which is a really big passion of mine. So yeah, that I don't know why I had the need to say this, but it just feels like I feel seen by what you ladies have said. But when it comes to where I imagined myself to be, it's a really funny one. I need to read something because I just had yesterday this quote that I created a screenshot of quotes, and and it was interesting that it came to myself, but it's your direction matters more than your speed. And I think I was always having a sense of direction somehow, never knowing how I'm going to get there and how the path is going to look. So for example, when I started my PhD, I just had a feeling this is where I need to be. And for example, during my PhD, I was working with super resolution microscopy, which I never expected to be working with at the time, because I was trained as as a biochemist. So basically, my whole training was all about protein purification. But then I ended up working as a microscopist. And then I came here thinking I'll finish this in 3 years and get my professorship. I'm in my 5th year now, not knowing whether I will ever get to that place. But I do have a sense that something will emerge, and that I'll find something that's coming next. But I think it's not at the speed that I expected it to be. And the detour, and an interesting thing, a friend of mine who's also a scientist, and she has a charity actually here. She told me, Alex, that's fine. You will go on this kind of path, but then the tools you get on that detour path will then eventually flow into your new path. So just it's okay. So that was very supportive, to remember that the detour is basically a place where we are taking something for the path we are forging for ourselves. So that's something that was like a big support for me, and I'm not sure where I'm going to be next, but I do have a feeling that what I want to do is to stay in science and just show that there is a different model of how we're doing it. because as Vitike was saying, there is for me at least, there is something about this belief that is highly competitive. There's a lot of pressure and all these like really hard words, which I don't believe in. And I really wish I won't be expelled from the system, that I can show that you can do science and innovation from a place of wonder and awe and curiosity rather than from a place of lack and scarcity and stress. So I'm really hoping that I'll manage somehow to find a way to do that. I'm not sure yet how, but that's where I am.
I just wanted to comment on what you just said on the sense of direction. I can really relate to that, you know, and I believe there was a time in the past when I was younger or throughout, you know, the high school or the university times, where I got somehow brainwashed on the fact that every choice that I was making was the final one. And maybe it had to do with, I don't know, you pick a university, and if it's, in my case, I did biomedical engineering, it's quite a commitment and a time investment to start with. So you get the feeling throughout the journey that that's it, you know, and it wasn't even something that was necessarily imposed by society or the teachers, or it was just like myself, ultimately convincing myself that that was the way. And I'm very happy that over the years that changed quite a lot, actually. And right now, like I always tell everybody that when people ask me, for example, in job interviews, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Sorry, I can't answer that. That's against my nature, you know. And if I look at the many changes that I encountered, I'm much more proud of the way I managed throughout the changes, regardless of the end destination, than the actual choice that I made, you know. So I wasn't really the result of me being an engineer or me doing a PhD or me swapping from academia to industry and all of that. Those are just like boundary conditions. So yeah, that's it was just a color that I wanted to add to what I just heard.
Yeah, if I can also add, I was a little bit triggered by the word detour, because it also like it kind of implies that you're somewhere where you're not supposed to be at that particular time. And it also made me think about my brother. So me and my brother, we are both burdened or blessed, the way you look at it, with complete lack of sense of direction. I get lost in my own apartment, not that beautiful because it's big, it's just non-existent sense of direction. But my brother decided that he is never lost, because he says you're only lost when you decide that you are at a certain location where you're not supposed to be. And I always decided that is exactly where I needed to be. There you go.
That reminds me of Alice in Wonderland, you know, like when the cat asks Alice, where do you want to go? And she says, I don't know. Then he says, well, then any road will take you there.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's true, like the detour and this final choice, that the choice has to be final. I fully agree with that it's like it's 0 or 100%, or like you have chosen this and then you have to stick with it. Otherwise you are wasting something, like you throw something in the garbage. But it's all part of you, like all this, when you presented yourself in the introduction, everything is combined. You know, Diana teaching kids and adults ballet, I'm sure adds tons of experience to her teaching students electrical engineering, even though you can say, okay, totally different things, but in essence, there is a commonality there.
Yeah, so I also would like to add something to this sense of direction, detouring. I say many times that the path is full of twists and turns. And that is what makes us interesting as people, as researchers, as project managers, whatever we choose to do, right, is our experiences. So yeah, I say this many times. I think if you look at my path, it seems quite a straight route, but it was not without a lot of questioning, doubts. Am I making the right choices? Is this where I want to be? Oh, I could also do this. Oh, I could also do this. Oh, today I like research more. Tomorrow I like teaching more. Who knows? So I think we should definitely leave a door open, and as long as we enjoy what we do, I think is good. But also, of course, we need to think about, a bit of our circumstances, because that also shapes our directions and our choices, and where we can go, what do we have access to. So I think many of us here have probably had several situations that we would like to have choose A, but unfortunately we have to choose B. But still, we did very well with B. So good for us.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. And I'm wondering, talking about detour and everything, the commonality here is that we are all women, and we all did PhD in STEM field. So I'm curious, how does going through a PhD serve you today? Because it's been a number of years for all of us that now it is behind us. So how does it reflect on your work today? Okay, maybe when you are a professor at university, it's very straightforward that you need to make this step. But yeah, even there, how does it play off? Valentina.
Yes. So the first thing that comes into mind is that in general, I don't like to define myself based on what I do at work. I like to believe that I'm more than that. So normally this would apply to every of the job opportunities, each and every of the job opportunities that I had, except for one, which is the PhD. So the PhD has really shaped how I am. And I think it has nothing to do with the topic itself. So I was into the STEM field, like you said, Maria. I was doing a human tissue reconstruction in the lab with artificial materials. And yes, of course, that plays a role because that's the topic that I wanted to investigate. So that's the reason why I got the PhD eventually. But it was much more of an experience from the point of view of shaping your soft skills, which is something that I never really encountered in other jobs. So at most, I would put at service what I learned during the PhD for the job opportunities later on. So that's the only experience that I would say that has really changed a little bit my nature. And I'm not sure how the others see that, if they can relate to this. I would be curious to hear.
All of them want to comment, but I saw Viteke. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think if I look at my PhD, I think my PhD was very useful because I learned really how to push myself and to well, first to work hard, but also yeah, to do new things. And I think also I have been very blessed with a wonderful supervisor, which also gave me very healthy, good standards of what to expect in a manager, a boss, how to be treated. And that is not a given, especially not in academia. So in that regard, I think for that, it was very, very helpful for my own standards, reference system.
Alex or Diana, you wanted to comment as well? Diana?
So I totally agree with Valentina. I could not have said it better. So despite me being, I make a lot of use of my PhD in my current job, but of all the technical skills that I learned, but definitely, and although it's a buzzword, the soft skills I think are the most important. I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about how to push myself, like Vitaka said. I learned a lot of how to work with other people. It's quite different settings. And I think that's a very positive experience. So I still believe that doing a PhD, if it's something that you want to do, brings value to whatever you choose to do afterwards, being it in science or who knows, in policy, in volunteering, whatever, in acting if you want. So skills that you get in during this time are invaluable. Of course, having a good nurturing experience is also part of the process, because as we know, there are many people that do give up or that cannot go up to the end with PhD. But yeah, I still see it as an added value.
I think for me the PhD, I don't know, it always felt like something that I had to do. It was never a question whether I should or should not do it. But I think what it brought mostly was I don't know why I'm pausing, because I wish I would have all these like amazing words, but I'm wondering what it exposed me to. But I think what it mostly exposed me to is to systematize myself, and it gave me the freedom to make mistakes and grow from them, and in a way, to the biggest thing, it was basically to individuate as in like to become my own person and to think for myself. But that has started already before the PhD, because I was in Petnica in this science school where we were basically taught critical thinking. And I think, yeah, the word critical thinking is something that comes to mind, but not critical as in criticizing, critical as in analytical. And I think in that was a lot to learn how to communicate myself and my own boundaries with people around me, including my boss, because after some time I started to realize if my experiment doesn't work for 3 times, I need to go to him and say, look, I've tried it. I trust myself enough that I'm not doing anything wrong. What are we going to do next? And I think it really sharpened my sense of trust in myself, and in my abilities to test the environment in a way that's technically and intellectually sound. So I think that was like the biggest learning. And I think because I had a boss that was supportive, I eventually was able to come and communicate and constructively build the project together with him. And so that was, I think, the biggest learning of becoming my own person. And I think that's the most valuable gift anyone can get from any place, is knowing how to make one's own free decisions.
Yeah. So what all you said is learning about yourself, basically. This experience gives you, it's a platform where you can experiment and learn something about yourself and develop skills. And I'm more and more fascinated seeing, now looking back, that you are usually in your mid-20s when you do a PhD. So this is like the first time when you have also some income. Maybe it is your first job. You have your income. You will maybe move to another country, live totally your own rules, your own life. And you are exposed, learning how to work with people, learning how to do science, learning a lot of different things. So there's plenty of opportunity to grow from there. And what comes to mind is that sometimes PhDs are finding it hard to explain when they are looking for a job afterwards. When somebody in a company says, you know, like you did a PhD, what kind of skills did you develop? So I would be actually curious to hear Valentina, because she is the only one here working in a company.
Am I? Do I get a special prize because of that?
No. But you know, like when somebody asks you, like, okay, so what extra was the PhD, and now that you are in a company,
Yeah.
why did you need it? Or
You know, when you asked the question, the first memory that popped into mind was even before moving to Industria. I was about to finish the PhD, and the TUE would organize these PhD career events or all sort of like advisory related activities where you would go and talk to mentors that would try to convince you. Back then, I promise that was the way this was phrased, that even though you did a PhD, you had something beyond the technical skills. And now I recognize this because the biggest problem sometimes starts with ourselves and not believing that, yes, there is more than us working hard on a very specific technology field. So in one of these events, I was in this group with 20 people. We were put in a room, and we had to do an exercise. So we were given a little post-it, and we had to write down the soft skills or the additional skills that we believed we gained after or throughout the PhD. And I swear that we all had hard times. You know, we were so much into, okay, yeah, I learned how to do, I don't know, immunohistochemistry, or I know how to handle a microscope. I know how to do stainings, whatever that was in my field. But what else can I offer, for example, to a company that does semiconductors? And you see all these big question marks in people's minds. And now, if I look back, I think the awareness that you have of that has changed, and that has to do also with the fact that maybe you move out of academia, you start interacting with people that have different backgrounds. You realize that again, the journey is the most important part, because now I think I talk to colleagues that have completely different titles and skills and experiences, and still it doesn't matter. They would see the value of having somebody that is diverse in the team as well, you know. So that's very reassuring, and I wished I had that kind of confirmation for myself a little bit earlier. But that has to do, of course, also with the things that happen in life, and sometimes when you are in the middle of the change, you don't realize it. You need some time.
yeah, but it's great that now you are bringing this message from that place to somebody who is now doing a PhD, saying, hey, there is an added value. So what you are doing, it's not only learning how to operate a microscope, even though you might use this knowledge in ASML, but
yeah, and it's still an eternal struggle, especially when I finished the PhD, or even in the middle of it, I transitioned towards science communication. And I remember I would be invited to events where I had to explain why I had a PhD if I then moved towards science communication, you know. And the fact that you are being asked the question in the first place, I think that's already a sign of the wrong certainties and assumptions that we sometimes take in life. Yeah.
I just wanted to add here, because when we speak about the added value, I find it very saddening how much we kind of depreciate ourselves in academia, and end up going out of academia with almost like a stripped sense of self-worth. And I really think that really saddens me, because since I have been in the high school science school, I always see that there is a crippling sense of self-doubt that's then completely kind of amplified within the system. And I think that's maybe why you end up being asked those questions of like, why did you do a PhD when you are now doing this? But I really feel that it's on us, or like it feels like it's my responsibility to bring that value back to myself and to be like, I know what's valuable here, and we have to find words to name this added value that is coming with a PhD. Because I think when we are lacking the words to name what we get, then we get caught up into like it's just a technical thing. But actually, like everyone who has done a PhD is project manager, is well, basically partially also a people manager, and because most of the scientific project in this day and age are never singular, and as well like having the technical expertise and all the other layers. So I just feel quite saddened that we're kind of lacking words to describe that, and therefore also go for positions that can acknowledge how important that is and valuable outside of the academic environment.
I saw Diana's hand, but then it disappeared.
Yes, no, I was just giving a bit of time in between. Yeah, so I agree with everything that was said, as I think we are very much on the same page. I like to believe that there is a change is coming. Of course, this idea of why did you get a PhD if you are doing science communication or project management, I think is very old-fashioned. But I like to believe a change is coming. I like to be part of this change and to equip the people that are around me and that work with me, that they can do a lot beyond what let's say many years ago was traditionally thought as the path to go after a PhD. So you have a PhD to go and be a teacher in academia. I don't think that is true anymore. Actually, you can do a lot outside than only having this very narrow career to do. So I do like to enforce this message. And if we go online, of course, as many of the new generation is nowadays, you can see a lot of examples like Valentina and many other colleagues that changed career, not only changed from PhD to academia, sometimes from PhD to industry, then sometimes from industry to academia, then sometimes from academia to industry, back and forth every other way. So I think nowadays people are getting more open-minded about this, and they see the values of actually changing and exchanging knowledge. So I want to keep a very positive view on this, and hoping that change will increase and this awareness will grow in everyone that is doing or supporting or making accessible a PhD.
Yeah, I can add one example of a colleague of mine who, well, originally he is a psychologist, and now he is working in a company, technical things. And last year we were together going through the coaching training. So his also aspiration is to combine all of this and bring it to the world. And recently he told me, like I have this crazy idea. I would like to do a PhD. So I have all of this knowledge that I would somehow like to do research on, and also spend some time, really doing research. So academia and doing a PhD is a perfect platform for that. And we're talking about a person who spent 20 plus years in the industry. So it's also about the interest. It's not, as Diana said, it's just a step to get to a professorship, but it's also, okay, I find this interesting and I want to do research for the sake of research and then see where it brings me.
I mean, sorry, if I had the time, I would study math. I mean, I hope by the end of my life I'll have enough time and resources to go back to university and study math. Because I really feel that I'm lacking a language in my life, and I really want to learn it. And at the moment, I don't have that capacity, but I really hope that one day I will. So I think yeah, I can totally relate to what you just said, because it just feels like um, we can dip in and out so many things. It just depends on the resources and capabilities we have in any given moment, I think.
When I was a kid, I wanted to be an hairdresser. And then I figured out later on that I wasn't that far from my actual goal. So every time that I go to the hairdresser, and it's not too many times, I just go like once or twice a year when it's just needed, unfortunately. But what I notice is that they have an extraordinary capability to listen to the stories of people. And I think if I look back, that's what fascinated me the most. So, and it's also what I do now. So I think I'm really good, extremely good at listening, but just because I love it. You know, I love to hear the stories of others. And I'm not sure how you would frame this, if it's psychology or something else. But at the end of the day, I think that's my goal, understanding like where the paths of people took them, and how can we do something together when there is diversity on the table. So yeah, maybe I will not be an hairdresser after all, but there was a sign in that too, I think.
Speaking of a hairdresser, and then I'm gonna give the word to Viteke, I'm very sorry. I was reading a book of like how much satisfaction you get from different kinds of jobs, and the hairdresser was the one where you get the fastest turnaround. You know, you get the feedback from the client in 45 minutes, 1 hour. So you immediately have this feedback loop whether you did the good job or not. Whereas with a PhD, you have to wait maybe 3 years, 4 years, I don't know how many. So this is also an extraordinary talent during a PhD, like patience, that you have to see something like in years' time and believe that this is going to be useful, and maybe accept that it's not going to be useful, but you investigated that area to show that it's not worth going in that direction. So I also find it fascinating how people stay motivated, you know, even though you don't have this feedback very quickly that you did a good job, and like small nuggets to keep going.
Sorry, before we take it, sorry, one last thing. Sorry, but I think that's it really reminded me of when I work with clients as a therapist, because there sometimes you need to do several small steps over a year or two with someone, and because I have a PhD, I think I can hold that space of patience for things to unravel. So I don't need to be fast, and I think I don't think it's the PhD, but just in general, working with slow processes that are difficult to look at really equipped me with translating that also into a completely different profession. Sorry, now.
I didn't have any interesting to say. I was just thinking because Valentina was saying about what she wanted to be when she grew up. And then suddenly I remembered that I wanted to be Urbanus, which none of you knows. It's a Belgian comedian. It's a very tiny, ugly, fat little man, beard with a beard. But as a kid, I thought he was hilarious, so I wanted to be him. Still working on it.
Do you understand now better why you had that thought, or is it just the same crazy thought that you had back in the days?
I thought he was funny, like so that's a life goal.
Yeah, and maybe that's something you bring to your to your work now? Not something you see very often. No, I mean, I have to say, like Vitek and me, we work together, and well, I don't see you as a comedian in the office, but but you do bring very much, this attitude of life. It's not like, okay, now we're at work, like 9 ticked in, and now we have to be performing robots. And at 5 we check out, and then everything, stays outside of work. But it's like, okay, sometimes we come with a crappy day. Sometimes we come and we have some jokes to share from a Belgian comedian, or I don't know what it is. But but on Monday in the office, I would like to hear more more from this. Yeah. Do you have something else to add, ladies, that that inspired you in this conversation?
Maybe one thing that is now connected to this sense of humor that we discussed, and also the listening capabilities. It's interesting because they were mentioned at different times. But if I look at the leaders or the people that inspire me in general, those are the people that can combine these two strengths together. And it happened also during the PhD. I would have, for example, supervisors or specific professors that I would look up at, and they were the perfect, example of how you can, like, if you have a supervising session, that doesn't necessarily mean that you are the one that is giving others directions. It's quite the opposite. And on the contrary, I had many sessions with my many supervisors that I had, all extremely brilliant people. And I realized later on that those were nothing more than listening sessions at their end. So I would do the talking and they would do the listening, and even in situations where, for example, I was confronted with challenges or difficulties, and I felt back then that that was my word and the end of the word. The sense of humor is something that helped a lot, to lighten up the whole thing, and to survive in a way, or to put it in perspective. So yeah, that's what I wanted to share.
Yeah, and what you said inspired me to think that when we go through a PhD and we want to go on the other side as a mold, like we enter looking for one thing, and then we expect that we are a mold exiting, but we have all these different elements. Like all of you shared what you like, how ballet influenced you, how interest in psychology interests you, how Belgian comedians interest you, how science communication, like all of these things, they are a part of us. So trying to strip away those things, because that's often what I see. It's like, okay, I have a PhD, so this is me, and like trying to maybe make it narrower and narrower, instead of saying, yes, I have a PhD, but I also love dancing, and I'm also interested in psychology of humans, and I love, listening to other people, and I'm good at this and that. And it's this combination that it's very unique. That's really what differentiates all of us here. Yes, we all have a PhD. Yes, we're all women. Yes, we have interest in STEM. Yes, we love dancing, but ultimately, like all of these weird combos and percentages in us, it's what makes us. Diana, go for it.
I really enjoy listening to you, because what comes to my mind is that we are individuals, but somehow in the past we were trying to fit someone else's mold, and we should not. Each and every one of us is unique, and we like what we like. We do what we do. We should not fit anyone else's mold. So we don't need to be here justifying that we like dancing, we like psychology, we like comedy. It is what makes us unique. It is also what makes us bring something different to the table, regardless of our roles. So we need to break the mold. Sorry for the well-known sentences, but sometimes we need to pick them up.
And it's great that you say that as a professor, because, you know, people work with you and maybe PhDs, they think, oh, you know, my professor is behaving like this, so this is how a professor behaves. And if I want to be a professor, I need to copy that behavior. And yeah, this is what I see often happening. Like people, when you are entering a new role, you don't know how you are supposed to fill it in a way. So you look at what other people do, and sometimes maybe not questioning whether that's you, whether you like it, whether you want to do it that way. It might be easy to just copy somebody who is in front and, okay, like this is how things are done, copy paste. It's easy, but I'm happy that you say we should not copy paste and be a mold, but find our own way.
I'm also extremely positive about the future on this aspect, because if I look at the circle of friends or even colleagues, I do have now younger colleagues or slightly younger colleagues than myself. And I'm also very fascinated by them and the way they are at work and outside of it. So what I noticed there, and of course it's always very difficult to generalize, so I'm not going with the whole story of we millennials and then you Gen Z differences. But still what I see happening is that, for example, in my case, I was confronted sometimes with changes and I had to convince myself that that was a good thing. Or I had to prove myself that at the end I managed no matter what. If I look at these younger people that surrounds me, it's kind of the opposite. So there is now a positive, finally, like reputation for changes and uncertainty. I have a lot of like these younger friends that I see them acting, and they're very comfortable with the fact that they don't want to play in boundaries. You know, like they actively look for the change. So constantly breaking down the status quo and experiencing new things. So if I look at them, I'm super positive and happy about the future, and I have a lot of confidence also in these people that will come after us, that things are going to change for everything that we discussed.
Well, and you ladies are here as examples. I think it's also our role to give them that space, to give the next generation the space to explore and express more of themselves rather than putting our own mold further down. Yeah, maybe as a final round, is there anything that you would like to add? No specific topic. If not, I just want to say that I appreciate immensely that you have taken this time. You know, Valentina in the US, Alexandra in the UK, and the ladies here on on Friday evening that we are recording this. Thank you very much for being part of this crowd, for sharing your experiences, totally unprepared, for inspiring one another, and hopefully inspiring some other people who are going to listen to this.
Thank you for hosting.
Thank you.
You are absolutely welcome. Well, I dare to say this is not going to be the last time that we are going to talk in this setting or in another setting. So I will say until the next time.